Have you ever wondered how Monogram logos are made with such accuracy in sizing measurement to achieve very or almost very perfect grid layout like so? So this is a custom grid layout, not like all of those plugin type of grid layout that look alike online. Okay, so all we teach here is custom design. We rarely use plugins or easy format or formula to do our works. Why we do so is so that you can make your work stand out from the rest. Okay, so what we'll be achieving in this lesson will be multiple fold. We'll be doing a lot of things in this lesson, and I'll be making sure I break each and every segment of this lesson down to the minimal so that even the layers can understand what we mean. So this is a little bit of an advanced course, but it is beginner friendly, I will say. And we are going to be learning how to create. The main important part of this lesson today is for us to learn how to create these dot effects for your grid presentation. So every other thing we'll be learning in this course is just a byproduct of what we are doing, just for the fact that we need to do that to get to this point. We'll be learning how we created this logo itself, and also I'll be teaching you the base and understanding or basic understanding for creating simple monograms like this. Okay, and at the end also we also learn, I'll make sure I teach you guys so you understand the sizings as you can see from here and understand how the measurements are made and what makes them, and also how to calculate your measurements. I've received this request series of times on how this measurement works, what this means, and all of that. I'm going to explain that in this video. Okay, I pray I remember that. So also we are going to be creating a color palette. Okay, so you teach you how to create simple color palette. So when you export your content with your presentation to your client, it's very easy for them to understand what you're working on. We might not have time to go through all of these. These are just samples you can also make up. These are also mock-ups of the existing one we just made from here. For the fact that we just removed all of the grid from this end and the digits, and then make the inner layer of this particular logo transparent so that we could have these effects. Now, we are going to expect this, and I am going to teach you guys how we come up with this styling that makes it look like some parts are radiant, while some parts are dull. As you can see from there, see some parts are dull, while some parts are more of the stroke color. So my name is Manuel from Kata Studios. I hope this will help at the end of this lesson to clear up the doubts on how to create a custom grid presentation and how to make this dot effect, how to also create the calculation for or any kind of grid that matches up with the style of presentation. And also I'll be giving out my design guide at the end of this lesson. Let me show you what that means. So usually I have a design guide like this. Okay, this is my current design guide, and I explained in my last lesson, my design guide is actually what makes up my design concept. So if, for instance, I finish making a website and I want to make a mock-up, I could just come in here and pick up on this mock-up and add at the top. So instead of creating this content from scratch, as you can see, these are created, these are custom created elements. These are just the icons and all of that. Okay, so if in case I would like to make a presentation for a website that requires this top bar, I don't need to create that from scratch. The same applies to other parts where I want to copy stuff, so make sure that I just use things without stressing. Or in case I am working on a project, I could just come in here and look around and I will get an idea to actually make that project based on the elements I find useful for that practice. I hope you understand what the design guide means. So I created a design guide, started creating these around 2017, and I came up with this. It takes time to create a design guide. You see, I have all of my elements in different areas. I also have let me zoom closely so you see what you'll be getting here. So I also have my color palettes, different color palettes, but the gradient version, the gold, you can apply gold in case you created a background and you want to apply the gold automatically. You can just select, you want to apply the red gradient, you want to apply the orange and yellow, you want to apply the light gold, you want to apply this color, that color, and that color. So whatever you want to do, whatever you're designing, you need a cool color palette. I've actually shared the color palette. It's what is in one of the videos we actually published. But in this lesson, I'll be sharing you guys this particular design guide. And as you can see, you can also get your icons, social media icons here. You can add yours. I will send you this as a startup or as a base to creating your own design guide. Every designer needs a design guide so that I don't waste much time preparing content each and every time. So I'll be copying most of my design guide from this particular one down to that one so that you guys can have more content to deal with. Someone requested for this from I've forgotten the country that was, and she requested for this, and I thought of maybe I just gave out some parts. As you can see, we have some background gradients here, walk around. You can check that out when it's out. So for now, let's get down into business. So what we're going to do in this is we are going to inspect, we have actually inspected what we will be doing. Remember, what we are doing for today is learning how to create this grid layout. It's not actually how to create a logo, but we are going to learn part of how to create a monogram logo very quickly here. I'm going to give you the basics. I'm not actually teaching you guys how to make logo, okay? I don't know how to teach that. I don't have time to teach that. All I teach you is the basics on creating a logo. So what this simply means is that I teach you all the foundational practices, the best foundational practices you can implement to make anything you want. So it's now left for you to use your creativity to play around. Okay, you understand that? So I'm not teaching you how to make this kind of monogram logo or that kind of monogram logo, though we have courses like that in our YouTube channel. You can go check that out in our logo design playlist. But for this lesson, we are focusing on how to create the grid layout, create the dot effects, but we are going to practice a little, do a little of practice on how to create basic logo for beginner. This is a little bit advanced, but it's beginner friendly, like I stated earlier. So without wasting time, let's get into work. So first thing we need to do is to create a new layout. We can create a new layout by selecting on you can use the recent, or you can click on web. You'll still find the web option like what we found in the recent. Okay, you can also use the print version, which is the A4 or whatever. Now when you click on the recent or whatever size you want to use, the web, if we select on this, we can further adjust the sizing from this area. Okay, and make sure that the color mode is in RGB, not CMYK. Now let me show you. If we select on A4, the RGB automatically changes to CMYK. Now when you're designing with CMYK, the colors are not accurate like what you see. It's usually best for printing, but I never used CMYK even when I wanted to make printing, because most of my printing are DI, which means direct printing or direct images. So now what we need to do here is to be careful for two things. Okay, number one is, even if we are using the A4 styling, we need to go over to this color mode and switch it down to RGB. Okay, you can forget about all of this. We don't need any of this option. Leave it at this. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is, if we are okay with the height and the width, we make sure that if we want this to be horizontally placed, we select on this. If we want it to be vertically placed, we select on this. Now let me show you the difference between the both. When we create a vertical shaped artboard, this is what it means. But when we create a horizontally shaped artboard, remember to always check on your color mode. When we create a horizontally based artboard, this is what it looks like. When you want to create multiple of these, you can further specify how many of these artboard you want available. Then you can create that from here. So we have 4 artboard and we can start playing around. If you want this to be aligned in the way you want, possibly you want it to be horizontally aligned in 4 grid, 4 elements per row, you can hover over to your layer area, your artboard area. This is the artboard area. Click on this little dot at the bottom part. Okay, so from here we can direct all elements to the right and we hit on OK. I think that is all you need to do. Fine. So if you want to actually adjust it the other way, you can play around. You want to adjust everything vertically, you already know what to do from here. Just select on this and hit on OK. Everything is aligned vertically. I hope that is made very clear. So let's assume that we have created the layer we want, and we want to make this black background all through. So what we need to do is to select on the rectangular tool at the right corner, the left corner, I mean. So when we select on that, we need to draw out our line from the edge of this to the end of the edge of this other one. Okay, so let's do that right away. So once you select on it, drag around till you get to the edge of this and you release it. Now, when we do so, look very carefully to this edge. You realize that the background is white and we have a stroke. A stroke is the color around this, or the color around this at the edges of this. Now, let me show you an example what that means. We are going to select a red stroke so you understand what it means. Okay, so I hope you can see the stroke. Okay, let me increase the stroke size so we best understand what stroke means. I hope you see the stroke. So the stroke is what's outside outlining the element, whatever element, whether it is your icon you created or a new line you drew. So we drew this rectangular shape, vector shape, and it already have a stroke existing. So make sure you disable the stroke, number one. Or you can flip it. If this stroke is already on black, which it was usually on, what you can do is click on the flip option, swap fill and stroke. So fill is the color inside and stroke is the one outside. We can swap it. I call that flipping. So when you click on this, automatically the stroke gets to become white and the background becomes black. This is just a beginner tip. Then in the stroke, we can select to disable the color from the background. But before you disable the color from the background, make sure you're selecting the fill color and click on this option here. When you click on this, automatically you have this selected the background. The background is now empty. It doesn't have any color at all. It doesn't have any color. Let me show you it doesn't have any color. When we select on a red color for the background, when we clear this out, it becomes white. White is not a color. Black is not a color. That's a lesson for another day. So now we have our stroke at this color, which is, let's make it black again. We can now flip it if we want, and the stroke, the fill will become the black color and the stroke will become a non-color. So if peradventure the stroke is a particular color, you can also select a stroke color from here, select a color. If peradventure the stroke is another color, you want to disable that, which we want to do, just hit on this option also. So you understand you can flip and you can hide. Okay, you can flip a color and you can also hide. So now we've understand that part. Let's proceed with our work. So now we're done with that. The next thing we need to do is to lock up this. Locking it means we want to lock it to the background. We don't want it to be moved around when we are moving other elements. So what we do here, use your Control and 2 in your keyboard. Control and 2. The Control key and the letter 2 in your keyboard will lock that automatically. So right now we can't move it, except we are trying to move the whole artboard with the hand tool. I hope you get that. So now we are done with that. Let's just close this down. Now we are done with that. We need to start playing around with our logo. So for now, let's import the logo we intend using for today. So we are not just going to play around with this logo just like that. We are going to give it a little bit of respect, like trying to recreate it. But before we recreate it, let's learn the basics of creating a monogram logo. Okay, so one thing you need to do is to make your sketch. If you make your sketch, it is now easy for you to create a monogram. If you don't make your sketch, I wonder how difficult that could be. But for me, I usually don't make my sketch. I just play around with what I have, and at the end I get my accurate sizing. Everyone have their own format or formula to achieve whatever result they want to. So now what we need to do is to, if you want to create, let's assume we don't have a sketch. We want to create a shape. I will need to show you something. So when you select on this element, it is called the line segment tool. So when you select on the line segment tool, you will need to draw a line. Okay, you can hold the shift key in your keyboard so you can draw a straight line. Now, what happens when I bring down my mouse? It snaps, try to snap to a particular shape. But if I release the shift key, I can scroll to any edge without having any issue. But once I hold the shift key, watch how this snaps. You get the point? It snaps to the closest parts. Now, when I raise down a little, you see how it snaps to the lower part. Why? Because it snaps. When I hold the shift key, it snaps to the closest part of the shape. Now, the essence of holding the shift key is so that you can draw a straight line without making mistakes. So now we draw the first straight line. We have it there. If your line don't have a color, this is what you're going to have. Something like this. Nothing to see. Okay, so what you need to do is to select the tool itself. Make sure you select on the stroke and give the stroke a color that will be visible in that particular background. If you're using a black background, make sure the stroke is white. If you're using a white background, make sure the stroke is black. You can also use other colors, like for this case, we could decide to use the color of the logo or any color outside logo style. So we have this color over there. Now the stroke, you can reduce it to whatever size you want. Maybe you can make it 0.5, which 0.50, or you can make it more than that. But for now, let me make it more bolder so we can follow through, see what exactly we are doing. So now we have that first size. We need to create a second line. This is actually how to create a monogram logo. After you are done sketching, you can now use this line. In the sketch, you import the sketch, like the image inside of this. Don't worry, in our logo design 6.0, monogram logo design, design lab 6.0, which will be coming up in June or July, you guys are going to enjoy that lesson. I'm going to teach you guys all of these things. From sketch, we are going to get down to design. We're going to get down to clients' presentations, going to get down to user process and all of that. Okay, you're going to learn every down thing you need to know on creating a logo from scratch and to impressing your clients. So with that out of the way, we have created two different line segments. Now the next thing we need to do is to duplicate it to whatever space. For instance, this is this shape we created. We know we need to duplicate for this other lower area. Now I'm going to show you something very quickly. So if we select the both of them, we can hold the Alt key to duplicate. Now we are actually duplicating only one of these. The both of them are not moving along. Why? Because we are selecting the direct selection tool. A direct selection tool feature can help you select an element without affecting others, even if those elements are grouped. So, but a selection tool will have to select all of the elements all together. Let me show you what that means. So when we select all these elements, you can hit on Ctrl and G to group these elements. When you group these elements, you can't move any of them without moving all of them together when you're selecting the selection tool. But when you select the direct selection tool, you can only move one, and you can only move one, and you can only move one, you can only move one. But whenever you select this selection tool, whenever you move in anyone, all of them, even though they are separated, will have to move alongside. I hope you understand that. You use the Ctrl and Z to undo what you have done. That's number one. Number two is the reason why we selecting this and it's not working is because we selected on this and the direct selection tool. Even if you select everything, select on direct selection tool and try to select one, it moves only that one. So when we select everything, make sure you are in selection tool and you can hold your Alt key. Hold your Alt key, then now you can duplicate your elements the way you want. Okay? So first thing I advise you to do is select on the element itself. Once you have created these two lines that are equal, select on two of them, hit on Ctrl and G. Ctrl and G helps you to group this element. Once this element is grouped, you can move two of them without even holding any key. Okay, so now we have done that. Next thing we need to do is to hold the Alt key like I said earlier, and we can now duplicate two of them together. Okay, so now you notice a line in the middle. That line symbolizes that we are actually in the middle, equal size with this one, as you can see. Okay, now let me show you something very quickly. Some people will be asking, how do we create this shape right here? I'm going to show you that very quickly, but before then, we need to add a fill color from here. A fill color is the color we will be creating when we are dragging around here. But best practice, let me show you without the fill color what is going to happen and what is going to happen after the fill color. So now we have created these two layouts. Remember, this is what we want to create, something like this, but we don't want to create this for now. We are going to come to this in a little while. But what we need to create here is, I just wanted us to create a sample work so that you see how creating a monogram works. So we first of all created a line segment and we duplicated it. Next thing we need to do is we duplicate this again. And for now, we need to hold the shift key to rotate this to a specific size. If you don't hold the shift key, look at what is going to happen. You might not know when it gets to the specific height that is equal. Okay, you might not even know when it is equal to this. Okay, so when you hold the shift key, it applies the snapping effect like we had in the other one we did. So now we can now place it at this edge, okay, because we want to create a particular shape. We place it at this edge or whatever edge we want to play around with. Okay, now the next thing we need to do here is to what do we do? Okay, let's try to create a shape. Okay, let's duplicate this again before we create a shape. I just try to make sure that you understand this the best way. Okay, now we duplicated this and I want to show you something very quickly. Now we have created this. Some people or some beginners will just click on the shape builder tool and try to play around. It's not going to work. Why it's not going to work even though we have joined everything together is because we are having a shape that have an empty space and we are selecting only that shape. Now it is time to delete this, so I'll show you what that means also. Now we select on the shape builder tool, we try to create a shape from this edge. We can't because we have all empty space and we have not selected anything to actually render our shape on. Now we are selecting everything to render our shape on, but we can't still create a shape here, but we can now create a shape here. You see it? We can create a shape here and we can create a shape here. Apart these three grid areas, we can't create a shape anywhere else. It's only in these three areas. Why can't we do that? Because these three areas are covered with squares. All these three areas are guided without any space outside the word. You see, these parts have a space. Now, what happens when we select this one and duplicate it to these parts? Okay, and we select, remember, whenever you are done duplicating and you're okay with what you have, you must have to select everything. This is the first rule before you start using the shape builder tool. We have a course on this, you can check that out. So now you select everything, you can now select on the shape builder tool. You see, we now have all of these shapes we can now play around with, but we can't do that here. You see, now let's change this color. Let's swap this color to this. Do we? No, let's not do that. Let's create a color, because when we start creating this shape can be created, but it will never have any color. It doesn't have a color, but it is a shape. How you know it's a shape is that you can actually select it, but you can actually fill it because it's now a shape. Okay, so to fill this element area with the color, you need to still select on it and select on the shape builder tool to fill it. But this time around, you need to hold the shift key in your keyboard, and also you need to select a color, place a color on that area. Okay, now without going through this process or this long process, let me show you easily how to do this. So before you start creating a shape, when you select all of these things, before you start creating a shape, make sure you select on this and give it a particular color you want to actually work with. So now we give that fill color this, we can now create the shape. So go back to the shape builder tool, select on it. You can now draw along the parts you want to create your shape. I hope you get that. That's very simple and straight to the point. You can create on this part. You can create on the, you can even just tap on it. It must not be drawing around it. You can just tap on it. But why you need to draw around it is this. Watch. Now we've created by just tapping on each and every one of these. We have these areas differently separated. You understand what happened? Very good. But we want all areas to be the same. So what we do is not tapping on it. What we do is when we select whatever color we want, don't mind the fact I'm taking time to guide you on this. I'm just trying to make sure that you understand it the best way. I don't want too many questions. I don't even like to leave students with too much of questions. So now we can hold on the shift key. You don't even need to hold on the shift key. Shift key is if you want to clear out these lines without creating any shape. Okay, that's when you hold the shift key. But for now, we just have to draw our line inside it. Draw our line. Now, while we are drawing this line is now selecting all of those areas and creating until we join to this part. Okay, now we have created that shape. When we click outside, we can now separate this particular element itself from the rest of the elements. Okay, now here you can select on this and delete. You can just select on all of these areas and delete. All of these doesn't concern you anymore. All of these ones doesn't concern you anymore. You can just delete all of them, delete, and we now have the shape we created. You get the point? So that's number one tip. Number 2 tip is, in case you want to create a particular style, let's select on this. We can now further select on this part, select on this part, and select on this part. We are good to go with what we want. Oh, we never created a color. Remember, we need to do that. So create a color first, fill in the color, select this, fine. So now we can now fill in whatever color we want, but this time around we end here. We don't want to extend it to the other part. You can now select these other parts. You don't want to delete them. Select this part. Sorry about that. Let's try to separate this first. Select on this part, delete them, select on this. We are actually having a shape issue because of the stroke size, and we can fix this in multiple ways. Let me show you what you need to do right there. So what you need to do here is to reduce the size of your grid. Reduce the size to the minimal, because the more the grid thickness, the more difficulty you are going to face removing those elements. So now we have actually done that. We can switch back to that color we want, and we do the thing once again. So now we select and select and select. We are good to go. Use your direct selection tool. Click outside first. Use your direction selection tool to select only that element. So now we have this part. So when you reduce the size of the stroke, you now have the leverage to separate your element, because why that particular part will follow your element to go. I like when we do things, we have issues, so you learn. It's not like making magics for you. So why we do that is, if we have a thick stroke, it's gonna affect some part of this, because the thick stroke is actually having multiple layers that make it thick. As you can see, we created, this is 25, this is 25. When we increase it to 50, it is a double size stroke. Increase it to 70 is triple size stroke, and when it is 1, it's 4 size stroke. So 4 size strokes are usually stubborn to go away whenever you are playing with this. So make sure you are around 25, but you can start off with 1 pixel, which is 4 size stroke. And when you're done sizing whatever you want to size, you can further, do the rest of the thing, reduce the size, and then do what you want to do from there. Okay, so now we have our size from here. We can further, let me not delete this yet. We can further select on this, and we reduce whatever size we want from here, and we reduce whatever size we want from here. So we created a specific shape, which I don't like. Reduce it a little. So you must have to make sure it flows with the size and the quality that we have from here. Now, the second way to achieve that, which is how we achieve this circle over here, is to create a circle shape that matches this. Or we select on this to edge, curve it, select on this other to edge, and curve it. You get that point? Very simple. That's how we created this area. I'm not going to go through all of these things with you. Then this part, if you want to adjust it to match with what we have from here, we can simply, okay, right now let's just delete all of these things. Let's just delete all of these things. So this other part, if we want to actually play around with it, we can simply select on the direct selection tool, select on this area only. When you select on that area only, you can use your cursor to drag around this. Okay, see what I'm doing? But make sure you drag at the point of it. If you hold the shift key, it's going to snap. Okay, very good. So when you select on that part, you can either do it like that, or when you select on that part, go back and select your selection tool. Select the area you want to create. I don't think we can actually adjust that independently because the shapes are together. So best practice, select on your direct selection tool and use your area to extend this the way you want. So you can hold the shift key so that you don't make mistakes in the sizing. So now we have to go back to this. Let's actually play around with this. We have to go back to this. Fine. I think we are okay. Fine. So now we have this. Let me show you how we actually created this. So if by adventure, this is a shape we want to create, make sure you're selecting everything. Usually use, if you want to drag around the element, use your selection tool. so that any part you drag will work. But if you use your direct selection tool, if you drag this area without dragging all parts like this, covering all parts like this, if you drag only this area, look at the problem you're going to face. When you're dragging, you are going to have that other area left behind. So when you're using your direct selection tool to drag around, make sure you select everything and you can now drag them around. When you're using your selection tool, you can drag anywhere, and as long as you cover all ranges, you can drag all of them around. So we want to shift this or adjust it a little, and we expand this a little. Okay, so let me just show you what this feels like. We are going to select on all of this, go to opacity, and we reduce it. We are assuming that this is our sketch. Okay, and we want to recreate what we have from here. So since we are assuming it's our sketch, what we need to do is to drag this two area to the top side. Remember, this is actually larger than what we have from there, so we select this also and expand it. That's why you actually have to create your sizing before you have to make your sketch before you create your sizing. When you make your sketch, import it, you can now make the sizing. Remember, we first before made the sizing of the height of the stuffs exactly the size we want. So now we can create a top layer like this. We can duplicate that, use the same sizing. This is how you get a perfect sizing for whatever work you want to do. Duplicate this also, and you get this other one in your sketch. There are many ways people do this. I wonder how they achieve that, if not this. So you can also duplicate this one, but this time around we are going to rotate it to match to make sure we match our sketch. Okay, we have that size. Let's rotate this a little more so we can have, see that perfect edge from there. We adjust it and we are good to go. We can also duplicate it again so that we can match these other elements from this area. Fine, perfect. Okay, so we have created that two layer area. The next thing we need to create is the circle that makes up this area. There are two ways we can do this, one of which is we could create a stroke, a base stroke around this element. Let me show you what that simply means. Okay, let's still use this to do that, but I don't know where we can place this. Let's place it here. Let's place it here, I think. So we have our base. We have some simple stages here, but another one, we need to create another layer from this end. But this time around, this layer is going to be 1 and 2. What that means is that we need these two elements to be separated. So we use the direct selection tool to select one of these and delete it. So we only need one from here. Okay. So now we have that shape that creates that edge. We have to duplicate it for this other edge. Do we need to duplicate any other edge? Okay, yes, we need this particular one over here. So what we do from here, we create a new layer from here. This one is going to be very small. Let's deal with that with the small elements. Let's select on this, select on the top area and reduce the size. Then we can drag it in. And we can drag these other parts. We need another part for this top layer. So we can use, let's select this and use the same sizing. Perfect. I think that's perfect. Okay, so we've created all base layer we need to create. Remaining one more thing, we need to create another one for the bottom parts. Let's use the direct selection tool to select one and create for the bottom part. Now there are some areas I might not create here. You know what to do from there. Okay, create another one for this other element. Remember this element from here, element from the east coast. Create another one for the bottom parts. Is there any other one we are missing? Just look closely. Okay, yes, we are missing this other edge from here, so we have to create that one for this edge. I thought we have even created this before now. So we are almost good to go, and this is the time to now create our elements. Okay, so the other way to curve this is to create a circle and pull that circle to this area. We can create a circle like this, okay, and we have to fill this circle, have to have a specific size in stroke. So we could increase the stroke till it matches what size we have from here. Okay, this is one way to do that. We reduce the size, and the size, let's reduce the opacity so we can see through. This is what you do when you want to see through your sketch and your design. So we see that the size is too much. What we need to do is reduce the size of the stroke a little more. So let's reduce that a little more. Let's just be careful so we don't make that too much or too less. Okay, we now have to adjust this part to match, and okay, so whenever we come to whatever size we want for that particular area, what next we need to do is to go over to I think that's view. Is that view? No, let's go over to objects and expand. Okay, that's object and expand. So click on object and click on expand. In expand, make sure you enable the fill and stroke, and you click OK. Automatically it have expanded it. It have converted this from a stroke to a fill element. So now it is a fill element. Let's see our color, if it is still maintaining that 17%. It is still, so let's increase it. So from here, whatever size we have, we can now switch. Remember the swap effect, swap it, then reduce the stroke line to the same as we have from here, which is 25. Then whenever we put it in here, okay, and we selected everything, if peradventure we selected everything, we go to the shape builder tool, we can now pick on that circle area and we have our work. I hope you get it, you understand it. So, but we are not going to use that style. We already created a style for it. But if we are going to use that style, it is still the same formula. Just play around with this style. I just wanted us to use a style we can just play. Oh, let's just use the circle effect. Let's just use the circle effect. Let's try to make it perfect. Okay? Let's just try to make it perfect. Let's not use too much of easy styles for work. I don't like too much of easy styles. So now you see we have created that circle effect, and we actually matched it with what size we have from this angle. And even it is even perfect than the size we have prior to this design. So make sure it matches. Check all the edges and make sure it matches with your circle. Moreover, your sketch must not match perfectly with your circle. It is not like a rule. Don't forget about all of those stuffs. Your sketch must not be perfect with those edges. It doesn't even make any sense if anything is 100% perfect. So now this part, make sure that what you need to do from here now is to make sure that all of the areas are actually joined. Now look at this part. Look at this part now. This part is not joined before. We have something like this. If you have something like this, remember the rule. If you try to use that element, it won't work. So make sure that everything is joined together, and there is a space from this element. There is another space from this element, which means we must have to have, all area must have to have an extra space from the stroke. So there must be an extra space from the stroke. If it is not, you can select on the stroke itself with the direct selection tool, select on this part and draw it out. Okay, you get the point. So make sure all parts have that extra extruding shapes around them. Now, if you check your work completely and see that you are perfectly okay to go, this is when we need to do the main work. You can further possibly send this to the center of your work so that we can see exactly what we are doing. Okay, so now we are in the center of the work. Select everything, then we can go to the shape builder tool, select on the shape builder tool. Remember this one we have from here, we need to actually create on it, and these parts also we need to create on them. But now what we need to do is to delete the element we have already created, or we lock it, because if you don't, it is now seeing it as the element which you're actually creating our work with. So what we do here is, let's try to lock this out with Control and 2. Now we've locked it. We have now noticed we are having some issues from here. See this part, this particular area, this particular element must have to jam with this particular circle. So make sure it jams with that circle. If it doesn't, the circle, when you're trying to create that area, it wouldn't work. The same applies to this one. Make sure it jams with that circle. Make sure it jams with that circle. Okay. Make sure it jams with that circle. These parts can stay like so, I think. Or we may need to adjust the size to match. I think that's okay. Same applies to this one at the bottom part to make sure that everything stays in place. Perfect. Do we need this size? Everything is okay. I think everything is fine from here right now. This particular size, we need to increase it a little since we have gotten specific size. So good. We are good to go. Let's see now to select everything and see if our grid layout will activate. So we select on the grid. You see our grid is now activated because we have locked the one we are using in the background. Now, if you're using a sketch, you don't need to lock the sketch because the sketch is not actually a vector shape. But because we are actually using an already made design to do this, the vector shape is actually going to work when we are trying to select on it. You see that? So that's what I want you to understand. So make sure you lock it up because we are using a vector shape. This is just a play. We are just playing around. So now we are done with that. What you need to do is just to hit on these parts, select on this part. But first, make sure you have your color selected. Remember, that is very important. Okay, we have our color selected. I hit on that part. We have that side selected. The next thing, we have to play around with the edges. Make sure you fill out all the edges, okay? Any part that is not filled, make sure you fill it. Like this little tiny part from here, make sure you fill it. You get the point? Very good. Then we continue, and we continue down here. Let's see if there is any other part remaining. We are good to go there. Next thing, we need this part. Just click on it once because we don't want to join it with any other part. See, this part is missing. Remember what I told you? Fill it out. If you have any part missing, no problem. You can still come back to it later and do it. So this part now, we need to fill it like this, fill it like this. And did this fill with the bottom part? Yes, it fills with this part, but we didn't fill this part because we separated it from here. Okay? So I think we are good to go with our work. There is no big deal in this. Okay, we are done with the work. We are just done with the work. What we need to do is to use the direct selection tool to select all our elements separately, all our logos separately by holding the shift key, and we select everything. Once you select everything, just drag it outside and you can delete all of this. Delete. Perfect. So now we deleted, you can select on this and click on Ctrl G to group it. Remember this one that's in the background, we can forget about that, or we can select on it and delete it. So now we are done. We are not perfectly done. We have a perfect shape that is more perfect than this one we have because all sizes are measured equally right now. Okay, so next thing we need to do is to select on this area, okay, and we click on this part and we can curve it to make sure it matches what we have from there. The next one, we need to click on this dot again. We call this anchor points. Click on it once and we curve it a little to match what we have, the effect we have from there. Okay, you can further select multiple anchor points. See, we made a mistake from this edge, but don't mind that. You understand the scope. You understand why this mistake was made because of we selected a part we are not supposed to select. But to fix this is still very simple. You can come across mistakes like this. Instead of going back or iterating, you can easily do that from here. So select on this tool called this is my master tool. I'll be teaching you this tool separately, called the curvature tool. And from the curvature tool, you can select on the anchor point and delete it. It will actually adjust it. Select on the extra anchor point and delete it. That's one way to do it. Second way is that when some anchor points you delete them, they become stubborn and cause trouble. So what you need to do there is to select on the anchor points and respect them and keep them in a very straight line. You see what I did there? Keep them in a very, but make sure they don't alter your other part of design. Anchor points can be very stubborn. For instance, if we never have an anchor point here or never have an anchor point here, there is a way we do this and it will scatter what we have from the other end. So best practice, if the anchor point can be deleted, just delete it. This one, you still adjust it if you want. If it can be deleted, just select and delete it and we are good to go. So now we've created the base of what we want. The next thing we need to do is to start creating let's create our grid layouts. So the sweetest part of the grid layout is the calculation parts. So I'm going to teach you calculation parts and how we come up with this. Let's just do that right away before we get into creating this dot effect. And these grid effects we created here are still those particular line we use in creating that. We're actually trying to show the public that this is actually how we achieved the logo. So all these lines you see here, you already know what they mean right now because you're not new to it. We just did it a couple of moments ago. Now, the sizes you see here are very perfect sizes. The size we have from here is 2x. 2x simply means 2 pixels, 2 inches, 2 yards, 2 centimeter, 2 whatever size. X there means whatever format of size. We can have it in pixels, we can have it in inches. So for instance, this is actually to be printed on a billboard. That will be calculated by inches. But if it is to be used on a smaller screen, it can be calculated in centimeter. So this will be 2 centimeter in smaller screen, but 2 inches in larger screen, but 2 yards in a billboard, a larger big board that is more than inches. You understand that? So the X here simply means whatever size formats. Okay, so we have 2X. I choose 2. You can choose 4. You can choose 6. Whatever size you want to choose, depending on what you are making. But I choose 2 here. Why? Because 2 is the most minimal and configurable size. What this means is this. If you choose 2, it is easy for you to multiply without multiple fraction or meeting multiple fraction issues. So we have 2 at this size, which means all of the size we created that is of this particular, remember when we are creating that layout, we created the first line and we created the second line beneath it like this. Okay, now the space between these 2 elements is 2 pixels. Even if we extend it to this, we can also make it stand as 2 pixels, whatever we want. We can make these 2 pixels, and even if this is smaller like this, we can also say it is 4 pixels. It is now left for the designer to decide what size it is. Nobody have control over that. Okay, it is not sizing. It's not like you pull up a size, a rectangular size, and you say, okay, this particular size is whatever pixels. No, if you look closely here, the pixel size here is 65.76 pt by 65.78 pt. That is because it's a square. If you raise it a little, it's now 91 height. Now, you don't calculate this. This is not the size you use in calculating whatever size you are giving to your, no, that's not it, because that is not in pixel. PT is not pixels, okay? Even if it is pixels, you still have your right to select or control whatever size you want. So for instance, how this is created, let me not go too deep explaining some things. You must not be even perfect in your sizing, but let me explain how we achieved the 10 pixels and we achieved the 2 pixels. So we have 2 pixels from here to here. Then we can select on these 2 elements and group them. Remember to group them before you can duplicate. Now we group them. We can now rearrange them by holding the shift key so that we can have a snapping effect. And we can calculate now. We can say this is 2 pixels from here. The next one, 2 pixels. The next 2 pixels. The next 2 pixels. Now we have 4 pixels, okay? The next 2 pixels. So we have 2 pixels times 5, which is 10 pixels. So this is how we achieved our 10 pixels from here. So we have from here to this edge is now 10 pixels because it is 2 pixels, 2 pixels, 2 pixels, 2 pixels, and 2 pixels that makes up this particular area. I hope that is well understood. So you can decide to measure it yourself to see the accuracy if you want to. If you don't want to measure the accuracy, you can go on with what you have. You can use your sense, your brain to know that this should be around 8 pixels or 10 pixels. So if this 2 pixels, this should be around 8 pixels. But you want to make your measurement, that is exactly how to make your measurement. This is how 2 pixels at the top and we have 2 pixels for the width. So the height, the width, 2 pixels, the height, 2 pixels. This is 180 degrees centigrade times 10 pixels. So which means the height of this is 10 pixels by 180 degrees centigrade. What it means is that the circle we created is 360 degrees centigrade. 360 degree, not centigrade. 360 degrees, okay, which means it rounds, but half of it, which is what we just did here, is 180 pixels. If this particular circle ranges not from the center, it ranges from somewhere like this, you have to calculate the size. It could be around 120 degrees. I hope you understand that too. And why we use a different color is to denote that this is a totally different fraction, not a pixel calculated fraction. This is a degree, not a pixel calculated fraction. You can use multiple colors for your sizing, whatever you want. You can sizes of 10 pixels, 2 pixels can use white color, 10 pixels can use, you can do that. You cannot even make all of the colors the same, but make sure if you are calculating degree centigrade, you know what to do. This edge here should have a degree centigrade, but I just averted that. You must not put everything everywhere so that everything won't be scattered all over. So let's get back to work right now. This lesson is taking longer, but I like the fact that we are breaking down every single part of this so that it will be easy for us in our module 6 or in our design lab 6.0, so that this will be a base for every student or a prerequisite for every student to get into that course. So now that's actually a free course, by the way. So now let's just do this very quickly so that we don't have to waste much time. Let's go to our layer panel and delete the other layer. So this layer we actually locked, we are going to lock the background as well. So select on this and delete. We don't need it anymore. So we select on only this and we move it to the center. So this is time we need to start creating our sizing. I already taught you how to create these 2 pixels. So let's create our dot effects. Should we do that first? Now let's inspect this closely. So I'll show you something very quickly. You see, like I said earlier, in case you think I've forgotten, you see this area, it have more great glow than this part. This part have lesser glow. This part have more glow. How did we achieve that? Let me do that simply with a simple, by the way, this is a website I made for a client. You can check that out, Noya Wellness and Spa. So how we do that is this. Let me use one of these icons to do it, or let's just create a new area of element. This, okay? So we create a new one. Let's go closely. So here we need to do is to increase the stroke size to at least 1 pixel. Now we've increased the stroke size. There are 2 things we can do. We can make the edge here very tiny, and the center very bold. If you want to do that, you can click on option in the stroke area, show more option, and from here select on it and select on this particular effect area. But make sure you are selecting on the element first. Select on this and select the effect area. As you can see, we have this part very tiny and this part very tiny and the center very bold, but that is not the effect we used for this. So you are using non-uniform, select on it, non-uniform, and we are good. I just wanted to show you that very quickly. Now what we need to do here is to play around with the gradient. Select on this, select on the transparency area, click on this tiny one. You see the gradient from this part. You see the gradient from here. Okay, I hope we have not locked this element. We have locked the element because we hit I just hit on the Control 2. So we click on the layer again and we select and unlock the elements. Fine. So now we select on this, go back to the gradient area, select on the gradient, and we have this gradient style. So what type of gradient do we have to use? Linear gradient, of radial gradient, or free form gradient? We have to use the linear gradient. So now we use the linear gradient. We have to select or define our color for the gradient. So the first color we want to define here, we can use the color picker tool and pick the color we want. Second color we want to define here, we can still use the color picker tool to define what color we want. So we have 2 colors from here, the same color, but look at the trick. Okay, look at the trick. The trick is this. Okay, when we don't select, let me just use black for this instance. When we don't select that color, look at what happens. Let me select outside. We selected black for the other part and this part dark. You see the effect? We're having this part bright now and this part dark. You're understanding the concept of what we did from this. Okay, you're understanding the concept gradually, right? Very good. I want you to understand it in multiple ways so you can create your own concept the way you want. So now we have done that. The next thing we need to do here is we have to set this to the same color. Don't worry, we are going to play around with that. Now we've set that to the same color. We can just double click on this, go to this opacity area and make sure the opacity is reduced to the minimal. Whatever size you want is okay. 30 is still okay. So now we've reduced it to 30. Let's still check that out and see how it looks. You see, it looks like the dark one we just created now. So you can do it in multiple ways, creating a black anchor points or black dot area and then creating a bright dot area. Now you might be asking, mine is very different from the one I just did now because we have a dark area, a bright area, a dark area, the bright area, a dark. Now, if you want to create that multiple fold style, what you need to do, select on the elements, select on the gradient again. Now, what we need to do is, since we have created the 2 color values, we can duplicate those 2 color values. Okay? Hold the Alt key in your keyboard and you drag out that area you want. Hold Alt key here also, and you drag out this area that we want. So we have this one, select on it, and make sure it is within the range which we actually calculated. Fine. So we have it now. You see, we have bright, dark, bright, dark. Very beautiful. Okay. So next thing we need to do, we have understand this. We can even use this particular layer style, this particular template we have created to do what we want to do now. So watch very closely. Watch very closely. We have created the template we want to use. So what we need to do here is to select on these elements and make sure we don't have any fill color. Okay, make sure we don't have any fill color. So to do that, you just have to close down the fill color, and all we have is just a stroke. So since we have only a stroke, select on all of this and select on your eyedropper tool. The eyedropper tool, you can pick colors, you can pick styles. So you pick both the colors and the styles for the stroke, because this is a stroke and we actually converted this to a stroke only, leaving the fill area empty. So click on this, automatically your work is done. So come closely. You see, we have the effect area that is larger and the effect area that is smaller. Now, we want to play more around. We think we don't have that really giving us the vibes like what we have from here. So what is actually missing? Let's get that done. So we select on this part again. Remember, it's our template now, because if you try to style this one after the other, you are going to waste a lot of time. So we select on our template again. What we need to do here is to go back to the gradient area, and this part we created, we need to reduce the size, the opacity size to like 10, and also reduce the opacity size for this one to like 10. The more you reduce it, the more, sorry about that. If you make a mistake, click on Control and Z in your keyboard. Control and Z will fix the problem. So click on this and we make this 10 also. You can even make it 0 if you want to. Make it 0 if you want to, okay? But we just use 10 for the benefit of this. Now, that is one thing to do. The other problem we are facing, why this thing is not being so sweet as the one we have here, is because of the size we used there. So in this one, we use the size of how many pixels? 1 pixel. So we have to reduce this down to about 75 or 50, 0.5 pixels. So once we reduce that, select on this again and use your eyedropper tool and pick the color in. Remember, we are actually dealing with the fill now. Okay, make sure you select on the stroke and make sure the stroke is outside first before you do your work. Bam. What? Still having the same color effect. So select on this and we are going to close this down. Select on this again. Let me see what happens there. Why is that giving us that effect? So in case, you see, we did it the first time, we didn't give us the effect. Now it is trying to become stubborn. In case it have this issue, you can flip this around and close this down. I think that's a bug. That's not how it's supposed to apply. So we are good to go. We have close to what we have, okay? Now, why we are not having this radiant effect, color also applies. Color also affects whatever we are doing. Whatever you are doing, color also affects it. So whatever color we are choosing here matters a lot. So we can choose this color. I think this color, I like it. Choose this color again. And this part that we made 30%, let's make it 20%. Let's make this 20% too. Fine. I think we have to make this one closer. We want to make the part that is faded lighter and the part that have more color brighter. What it means is that we want more parts of this to be color and just less part of it to be the dark side. So what do? We go over to this area, in this area panel. Make sure you drag on this particular stick effect. We cluster. We want to actually saturate more of this part with the main color. You get it? You get it? So we just saturated it. We just achieved what we want. And since we have that achieved, select on this again and select on the eyedropper tool and we fill in our color. Remember, we can replace this like so and clear out this one. So we are good to go with what we have from there. Fine, perfect. We are good to go. So now the next thing is for us to create our style from this end. To make things complete, we need to make things complete. So to create our style from here, we can further select on this. Let's see if we can play around with our gradients. Oh, sorry about that. Look what happens. We are creating the gradients from here. It's not a bug. It's a problem we caused for ourselves. We are creating the gradients from this area, which is not what we are supposed to be doing. So gradients from here should be closed down. We are supposed to select on the fill from here before creating, not the gradient on the fill. You're supposed to create on the stroke, not the gradient. So mind you, whenever you are creating a gradient, know whether you are creating on this or you are creating, let's clear that, or you are creating on the stroke. Whatever you are creating, make sure you select on that one first before you proceed with your creation. Fine. So these parts, I think we can increase it a little more. Like, let's make it a 40. And let's make this, since we have reduced that opacity size, a 40 also. Let's see. Fine. I think we are close to what I'm looking at. Closer. Let's make it 30. Let's make this 75, and then the gradient, you just need to play around before you get what you want. I'm not satisfied. I just don't feel comfortable. So select on this, and we also make this 30%. Perfect. Good. We are good to go. We are very good to go. Very good to go. So now, very good to go. This is exactly what I'm looking at. This is exactly what I'm looking at. This is exactly, as you can see, it's exactly what we are looking at. Exactly what we are looking at. Perfect. So now let's create our dot effect immediately without wasting time. We are running out of time. So let's start from the top side. So to create a dot effect, select on the rectangular tool, select on the ellipse tool, and create a circle. Okay, the circle will have to be a fill color, but the fill color is not going to be a gradient. It's going to be the main color of whatever we want to create. This is the first element we create. Okay, now we need to create a second element. Now look at what happens at the effect we have from here. If you look very closely, you will notice that there is a glow around that particular color. You can do the glow before or after the circle, but I usually like to do it after the circle. So what do? We duplicate this circle and we do the glow with this one. But first we have to expand this size before we make the glow. So now we expand the size, go to effect, scroll down till you find stylize, go down till you find not in stylize, I think it's in blur. Okay, blur. Click on Gaussian blur. So in Gaussian blur we have the effect to whatever size we want. We can reduce it or increase it. It's too much. This okay. This is fine. This is fine. So now we have done that. Make sure you are enabling the preview to see what the effect you are doing. Click on OK. Now we have done that. We click on OK. We need to reduce the opacity now so that it won't be too harsh or too heavy. So reduce opacity to about 50 or anything that you are comfortable with. Okay, you know what is okay for you. I don't like constraining you to any sizes. As you learned from the beginning of this course, I did not say use 2 pixels, use this. No, I don't do that. Use this color, use the color. Just play around. So now we can place this at the center of this particular element. Zoom very closely, place it on the center of that element. Now we notice that the size is now larger than what we have before. To adjust this, just adjust your color, your size of your element, adjust it just a little and make sure it glows from the inside. So fine, now we have that glow from that part. Select on these two and group them, Ctrl G. Remember I told you can do the glow outside, you can do it inside, whatever way. Since it's the same color, there is no big deal. So now we have those two elements. We can now adjust 2 of them at the same size, same time, to have the same, achieve the same thing we want. So we put this first glow at this first dots. That glow is not too glorious. So let's play around with it. Let's increase the opacity. Let's increase the opacity. I think I like that now. Okay, so we are good to go. Use the selection tool, not the direct selection tool, so you can select everything that is grouped. So we have to alternate and duplicate this also from here. We have to do the same thing from here. We have to do the same thing from here. Okay, now we have the first glow effect, as you can see from there. Very beautiful. Even though it's too much, the glow is too much in my eyes, you know what to do. Okay, let's just reduce the glow a little. Not even the glow. I think it is the size of the element, the dot element, that is the issue here. We might need to reduce the size of the dots. So we delete, because we are direct selecting, we can't delete the boats. So use the selection tool to delete the boats. So reduce the size a little more and we point it to that edge. Let's duplicate now. Perfect. Duplicate. Perfect. Duplicate. Perfect. Okay, so let's play around with the other parts. Very good. We are now subtle. The size is now subtle. play around with these other parts because it's too tiny. I think let's just play around with it. I mustn't make it very perfect. Please bear with me. I'm trying to make sure I run out. Make sure I don't run out of time. And you're going to do this for all of them, all of the edges you want to play around with. Okay, so as you understand, like I told you earlier, this is not a course to teach you exactly how to do this exactly. No, I'm just trying to play around with you and show you that everything is possible. Everything you want to do is possible. You can make a custom work. Stop relying on plugins, Illustrator plugins. I never use the plugin. If I open that area, I never use the plugin to do any part of my styling. Make sure your work stands out. There are many different styles you can do. You can achieve yourself without trying to use plugins. When you do it, you see that you're going to look totally different from what every other person is doing out there. That's what they teach in most design courses now, how to use plugins, because people are getting very lazy. When you do so, you are just like every other person. There is no difference between you and every other designer. So why will a client pay you differently? I leave that question for you to answer actually. So we are done with the dot effect. The next thing we have to now play around is the lines. Remember, after we are done with the dot effect, not this one, this other one. You see, we have the lines here, then we created our stuffs. Now, if you look in the center of the elements, we have a color. So it is a fill color we used here, a particular fill color we used. We can make that like this. So watch closely, see the fill color is now applying. So we're having a radiant that makes a little more sense. You can make it a little more darker so that it can match the background a little, but still having that effect. Good to go. So now the next thing we need to do is to create those lines. So first of all, we create the first line. We would have even used the first line, the lines we created earlier before now. Okay, but that's not a big deal. It's not a problem at all. This time around, we don't want the color to have the gradient effect, so we have to make it a specific effect. Now, in the one we did, we used a straight line, but this one I want us to use a dotted line. So select on the stroke area. Okay, make sure you reduce this size to about 5 or 0.25. That's okay. Then enable the dotted line. Okay, let's make this 5. Since it's dotted, it will be less visible. Okay, so now we have a dotted line. See what we have from there. So what we need to do here is to increase the dots or reduce the dots. The more we reduce it, the more we have more dots in that area. So we have more dots, as you can see from here. And here is where we can use the profiling style to use this particular style of profiling. So we have the edges lesser in color, giving us the same effect we achieved from this one without stressing ourselves. So now we have that dot style. We can expand the dots, the line a little more, okay, so that we can have everything full width. So we place the first one at the top and we place the second one at the bottom. So we are trying to do a different effect from what we have, a different line from what we have from the first, the one we just created. Okay. So like I was saying, you try to make your work look different. You see, people are going to actually rush after you, but you're trying to make the same thing, try to do the same thing every other person is doing. When I was making logo design, now I don't make logo design anymore. I focus more on website design, but still give more time to most of my clients who actually need that premium service. But you want to make something, try to take out your time and do something. Create something very, very realistic. Be innovative. Don't try to follow suits. Don't try to follow the crowd. Do whatever they want to do. However they post, whatever they do, whatever tool they use, no. Start asking questions like, what font is this? What this is that? No. This could be a font. This P could be a font, but it's not a font. We can create it ourselves. You can create a style of your work yourself. I think this is imperfect. Okay, feeling very tired. If you observed from the beginning of this lesson, I didn't cut any part. I don't cut my lessons. I don't do cut and join and cut and join. I like, if I make a mistake, you see the mistake right in front of me, so that you too pass through the same stage. You understand that it's not your problem as a beginner. It is a normal thing to make mistakes in design. What the problem is making mistakes and not correcting yourself. So now we are done with that. Select on this part. We want to reduce the size to 25. I think that's 0.5 is too much. I think this is okay now, fine. So we can now select on just one and we rotate it. Let's rotate it to what size that is going to work. And from this part, select on this tool, and we need to expand this a little more. Fine. So we drag it down here. And we need this part to go up a little. Fine. And we duplicate this also. Okay. And we need to do that same thing with these other ones. We can duplicate this one to let people know that, okay, this line is coming with this other line. Why we can't rotate is because we are not using the selection tool. So select on the selection tool, you can now rotate. Okay. So whatever you are not doing, make sure you observe your environment or your design environment very carefully. Your design environment is not something you can see with your eyes. Okay. Your design environment is what you are doing and how you are doing it. Okay. Observe your design environment, understand what you have done before and the mistakes and why it is caused or why the mistake happens, and try to make the adjustments. That's what design environment means to me. So we are done. I think we have this line, we have this line, we have this other one. Let's duplicate this one right here. So now we are done with that. We have to make sure that all of these three are equal with the rest of them, or almost equal with the rest of them. How to make them equal? These ones are equal, these ones are equal. Draw this one down a little. So all of them must be equal in the same line. Even this one have to come down a little. Even this one a little. Just that, just playing around. So we now have a different effects, and in one click we can change the style of this from dotted to straight line, from dash to straight line. We can also do that from this one, this one's from here. Make sure you don't select the logo itself. From this one from here, and we can make it a dash line. Okay, zoom closely. You see how ugly it is now. So let's go back to our previous work and see what makes it different. Now what makes this different from the other one we are making is because we have a color that actually speaks out from the center. So which means this color is actually outspoken. If it's a human, it's actually obvious to see. If you make it less obvious, your work is going to look dirty. I'm going to explain further. So we have it more obvious, and you see the work is shining now. That's number one. Number two thing is that the color of the elements are too obvious. So we have to reduce the color itself. So what do we do from there? Select on the color area and select on the lesser area of the color. Usually the lines are not supposed to be that obvious. Okay, select on it and select on the lesser area, and we are good to go. Fine. You understand what's happening now? Very sweet. I just wanted you to understand all of these simple tricks so you don't do things thinking it's not working and start looking for plugins. All of these things are very easy to do. So now we've created all those areas elements. We can now start playing around with our size. You can create a 2x, select Ctrl A, and I usually like using Poppins as my font format, and then switch this to green or white or whatever color we want. So these 2 pixels can be here, and the size is too much. Make sure your sizing is the size of your measurement is okay. So you see it, then this top side can be 10 pixels. This part will be 2 pixels from this end. This part will be 2 pixels as usual. This top side can be 8 pixels, okay? And This part will be 10 pixels. So here we can make this 10 pixels because it's actually 10 pixels and this is 8 pixels and it is understandable. So this other part, 10 pixels, 10 pixels, 2 pixels all around. And when you are done, this is what you do. You create a square shape in Photoshop. This is what I usually do. So make it 2000. I've actually teach you how to create a sizing, a project in Illustrator. Make sure this resolution is at 300 and make sure that the color mode is on RGB. Create this, and usually the background is going to be black. So unlock this background from here, unlock it, double click on it, and make sure you select on the color overlay, and the color overlay is going to be pure black. Or it can even be green, since we are dark green, since we are dealing with a green color. Dark green like so will be okay. Click OK and OK, and we are good to go. You can also lock it by holding on Control on slash. We have locked it. So what next you need to do here is to drag in, or you select all the elements with the selection tool, drag all of them into Photoshop and drop them here. Just wait a little. Fine. You see, even the one that would not even apply is even joining it. So now we have that, we can expand it to whatever size we want. And let's see what happens in the first one we created. You see, these lines touches the edge of the Photoshop. So which means that these lines are supposed to be longer than it currently is. Okay, so you make sure that the lines are longer than it currently is, so it can give an effect that makes more sense. So how do you do that? How do you do that? You need to select on this line and use this direct selection tool and expand this. Expand this, click on it. First of all, click on the edge. Okay, first of all, click on the edge. When you click on this, click on the edge again, then you can drag it. Else, if you try to just click on it and just drag it, you are just going to drag the whole thing. If you just click on this and try to drag from this edge, you are dragging the whole element itself. So click on it, click on the edge, and then see, you're just dragging the whole edge. So expand this part, click and expand this part. So we have this, expand the top part to any part. You can expand it to any extent. Okay, now when we select on this and push it back to Photoshop, remember we have not done the rest, the other ones, we just did a few of it. So we can delete the previous one we have so that we can see what effects we have from there. So we have this effect going down to this edge. We can't even see where that ends. So expand it. You see the effect at these other parts, left and right, is okay from the top side. Okay, it's very okay. Hit on enter and we are almost close to what we have. So this is simply how to create this. We are even having a better color than what we have before. Can't you see that? This is even better than what we have previously. I think way better than what we have. I don't even like this one anymore. What do you think? Perfect. We have not even perfected it. If we perfect it, it will be more better. So the glow effect, they are making it look, that's a little detail added to what you're doing. Okay, so this is simply how to create stuffs. We actually in this lesson we learned how to make a simple monogram and how to use the shape builder tool properly for beginners. That's a little bit of complex learning curve for beginners, and many beginners have been complaining, how do I create this, how do I convert my sketch to logo? This is simply how to do it. There is no big deal in this. Okay, we learned how to do that. We learned how to create the dot effect for the grid layout. Learned how to create the grid layout, and we learned the calculation for these particular lessons. And we learned how to actually tweak around our logo to actually match with the grid layout styling we actually placed on it. Talking about these areas, making stuffs a little bit subtle, not too great. And we also learned how to add a gradient to a stroke to make the effect we currently have. So now if you actually want to create this other one, you know what to do right here, right? You know what to do. If you don't know what to do, let me show you how I achieve that. So you can have multiple iteration of the grid layout by selecting on all of these. Let's select on all of these. We select on all of these things and delete them. We delete them and we select on our selection tool and we select on the logo itself. So now we selected on the logo itself. Go back to this part and we need to delete this again. go back to our work and drag that into Photoshop. Boom. We are good to go. So now we have that. We want to achieve this. Watch very closely. We want to achieve this. So we have these particular parts and this particular part available. Some part of it is not showing. What we do is just expand this and expand this. Just drag it up a little. Expand this one. Perfect. I'm even liking this one more than the other one we created. So once you're done with expanding, the glow here is too bright, too glorious than the one we have from here. So you see the effect and how we achieved that. This is what we did for the other one. Now, mind you, let me show you something. Let me show you something very quickly. Let me show you something. Let me tell you something. Now, we select on this part. We can erase this one, and erase this one, and we still have something close to what we have. We can also do that by increasing the size of the color from the area we have, so that we don't just erase. If you watch, when we erase the glow effect from this edge. We don't want that. So what you do is to make sure you do that from this area, selecting on it, selecting on the element itself, and making sure that this part is black, or making it transparent. Just make it transparent. Remember, make it transparent. It comes with no color. Good. And now we can import our work and continue. So that's how we achieved the second one. We have done the first one completely, and we have also achieved the second one. We're not going to be talking about this one because it's very easy. This is just the logo, explaining the logo and what makes it up. But I don't have time for that. I'm feeling very cold right now. So this color palette, let's try to create one. Let's just create a box. For the color palette, we create a square box, a perfect square box, and make sure the color is filled with black. I said black. Perfect. Then we can lock it up now if we want to. This is having a stroke. We are supposed to clear out that, but don't worry, okay? Let's just clear it off. I don't like it. So we lock it up again. So here we can create another layer inside of it, which could be our first color. We can make this a base color, and we reduce we curve the edge as we have from there. As we have from here. Okay. So we can get back here and expand this to this edge. Expand this one a little. So this is what we call the bento grid color layouts. Okay, bento grid is just the different grid style you can use that's actually match up. You can use different boxes in the same box, and it actually matches out or equals to whatever size or whatever color or whatever size of box we are actually playing with. So as you can see, we created that, and we can also create the remaining one. Can reduce the size of this one a little and shift it to this edge. Okay, and then we can adjust this one to this edge, then reduce the size. So the concept of bento grid is that all of the spaces around will be equal. Okay, so what this means is that the space between here, the gap, we call this gutter. The gap between here will be the same gap between here. So we are seeing that the gap here is not equal with the gap we have at the top. So we adjust the gap. So that's what makes bento. So we adjust this one also, and we are good to go. Now this is time for us to select or separate the colors. So we can say this is yellow. We can call this dark green or tan green. You can give it whatever name you want to give it. Okay, so to find the best colors, the name of colors you are using, or whatever name of color you want to use, you can go over to Google. You say names of green colors. Okay, so from here you pick whatever color you want. You will have to see the name. See dark green, light green, whatever color. You can see their names. Hunter green, this is a hunter green. So you choose the one that is close to the color you are using. So you see the color we are using here is actually this lemon green, this one here. So it's called light Saba green. Light Saba green. You can use that. But in another person's color palette, that color can be a different thing. Like here, it's called lime green. You understand that? So just pick on anything. It's just fun. Just have fun. Don't allow anybody to restrict you to anything. So here we can have yellow. And we say yellow colors, so we can still pick on the yellow colors, and then we can see different type of yellow color we want to work with. So once we go to our yellow color, I love that. Once we go to our yellow color, we just try to open it and close it to check if it matches any color we find there. Open and close. It matches with this one. I think it's orange yellow we have at the top. So we can name this orange yellow. So I don't need to go in depth telling you what to do. Just put a text color, write your text color, and put the hex code. How to find the hex code in your color? Just select on the color itself and head over to the gradient area. I think not even that area. Just double click on the color from here. Okay, you're going to find the hex code from here. See it? This code now there is the color value you can use. If you change this color code to something else and hit on OK, you're automatically choosing a different color. You understand it? So that is the hex code. You can find it from beneath here. When you find the hex code, just copy the hex code. Whenever you are writing your hex code, make sure you put a hashtag. Hashtag is actually what makes it edge, and paste your hex code or hex code. So we can make it whatever size of color you want, then adjust it to the edge, then your color of your font to be here. Now I have this issue. There is a lesson I'll be bringing, or there's a series of course I'll be bringing. Lemon green. There's a series of lessons will be coming up in a couple of months or a couple of weeks from now. Let me use the word. And that particular lesson will be focused on correcting students' projects on the live section. So students will be submitting their projects for corrections or reviews, and I'll be doing that in a live section. We started that already. If you check on our YouTube channel, you see the one I did for students, clients' projects for website design. We'll be doing that also. So once you create this, you can do it. Now, what I want to talk about is this. I noticed some students who submitted their work or who published their work in our academy group on Facebook. They actually did a lot of mistakes there. Some persons are using colors that are actually close. For instance, this lemon green, this particular dark green, we want to create the color. And I drag in this lemon green and I place it here. See what happens. The contrast issue is bad. Some people still leave it this way. I don't know if that is laziness or if that is for the fact that your eyes can't see very clearly. Select on this color. You don't even need to make it white. Look at how to blend the color so it can make more sense. You can either choose the same color we have from the background, from the other area. It will blend well. That's number one way to do it. Number two way to do it is to reduce the color a little. Just reduce it a little. Okay. So I can match, let it be more subtle and make more sense. But using a pure dark color doesn't make any sense. Okay? So when you're working with a dark background, make sure your color of your text is bright or a little bright. When you're working with a bright background, make sure the color of your text is dark or a little dark. I hope that's well understood. For instance, this one, we can make it a dark green, which is around this area. You see it's more subtle than just using black. Things make more sense. So this is how to create it. When you're done, create a square in Photoshop and drag all of these things. Like I said before, you can't do with Illustrator without Photoshop. You can't deal with Illustrator without Photoshop. Photoshop is usually needed for you to make your work, make your export, make your stuff easier for you. So since we have it in Photoshop, we can export our work by clicking on Control, Alternative, and S in our keyboard. And save it whatever name we want to save it, and save it as JPG. Click on desktop and we click save. We can select whatever size range you want, maximum, minimum, but make sure it doesn't get more than 500 kilobytes. And we are good to go so that you can share very comfortable or convenient for you in social medias, all social medias. So this is how we create this. You see, the dark background, I use the brighter one. The bright one, I use the darker one. The dark one, I use the brighter one. Just play around. You see, even in this one, in the hunter green, I used a white color here, but for the color code, I used a different color to separate the name of the color from the color code itself. I see many people in color code doing too many color code in the same color code. You use different code. No, don't do all of those things. You must not follow every trend you see in design. Make sure your work looks simple and seamless for clients to understand. The more difficult you make your presentation look for a client, the more fear the client will have bringing another project for you. They are scared because the things you provide for them are too much for them to consume. Don't make yourself look more professional than you're supposed to be. Some people try to be more professional than professional itself. Professional, the name itself, is even scared of you guys. No, make sure your work is simple and straight to the point. Don't try to over-exaggerate everything. Okay? When you want to give a color code, give a client a color code the client can understand. When they use the color code, they know. Not like using color code. Let me see if I can see stuff like that. Let me see if I can see stuff like that. I can't even see anything like that online. Let's go to images. If I see anything like that, I'll show you what that means. I can't see anything like that. I wonder where you guys get that knowledge from. Where you use colors, the same color, you use multiple code in the same color. Multiple code. Not like these are different variants of colors. This, as you see here now, are different variants of colors, as you can see. And by the way, if you want to actually find color, I'm also going to make this link available for you in the description below this video. Find this website, click on it. This developer did a very wonderful work here. Thank you very much. So you can pick on colors you want from here. You see the color code, you can pick on the color code from here and do your work. You can just find whatever color that works for your design. If it is this one, you can just play around with it. Select that color, it will pick that color. You can pick a color by just clicking on it. Once you click on it, when we go back to our color code now, select on this. When we double click on this and we just paste it, Ctrl and V, click on OK, the color code have been transferred. Very simple. Okay, so this is how to, if you are a beginner, you want to actually play around with colors, you don't know how to, your clients don't have a color and you don't know how to actually play around with color. You can use this particular styling to do your work. Okay, to do your work so I can stay in place. But do not follow all these rules. Not all color codes here are accurate. I have tried most of them and I actually advise my students not to actually play with all of the color code here. Pick colors. You can pick a color from there and pick a color from there. Just mix and match. Sometimes you try to use the same color variant or variable of color. These are variable and these are variants. Now let me teach you. Variables means a color combination that matches each and every one of that color family. Okay, that are also complementary. Those are what we call color variables. Color variables are colors that matches with a color family. Like for instance, say green. Green is a color family. Red is a color family. And these particular colors matches each and every one of themselves and are complements to themselves, which means they actually will flow together if you use them together. Now, color variables are different variable of color, different types of a same color. For instance, we choose on this light green and we have different variable of this particular light green. We have lighter one, very lighter one, and very, very lighter one. Those are color variables. Okay? Variants are what? As we have from here. And variables are the ones we can separate from each and every one of this color. I'm going to teach you guys color theory in practical, not color theory like what you guys are learning online. Color theory in practical. We are going to do it and you are going to see that this is actually how it's supposed to be. Not like what you learn. This is actually what you do. Okay? It's actually what you do. So that's it about this lesson. I hope you guys understand this very well. I hope you guys understand this very well. And for those who actually want to get into our academy, we still have our courses very open for every student. For each and every student, you can get our basic courses. We have multiple folds of courses available here. We have our web design course selling at 200,000 naira. This is around $200. You will love this course, everything in one. We have our Monogram logo course and all of these courses. All these courses are available, but we are not actually having much time for students for this. So I'm very sorry about that for students who purchased already. We are actually going to put more effort in actually delivering these courses in the next module. We are actually creating a course that will encompass all of these things at once. But We'll be coming back to this. If you want to purchase one of these courses, you are still free to do that. More students coming in, the more time we are going to commit to it. We are going to be improving all of these courses in the coming months, adding more features to it, because these are dynamic courses and we are adding more features to it. And we are creating more courses. We have a mobile video editing course coming for graphic designers for presentations, and web designers also for presentations. We also have another course which we are coming up, our e-commerce course for our web designers specifically. And we also have our full-time one-on-one monogram design course, which is going to start at $50 or 50,000 naira. That will be all encompassing. You don't need to separate stuff like this. So that is it for today, guys. I think you best understand this, and we have actually treated everything we said we are going to treat from the beginning of this course. This should be around 1 hour or so, but I am very happy and very, very comfortable or confident that this is actually going to help you solve all of the problems you are facing, creating a monogram logo or creating a monogram presentation like the grid format like we did in this particular lesson. Once again, my name is Manuel from Kata Studios. If you have any question, drop in the comment section below. Like this video so it can get to other persons. Also subscribe if you have not, because we'll be bringing out more lessons, free lessons like this. These are actually premium lessons. These are more advanced lessons, but breaking it down makes it easy for everyone to understand. So encourage me by sharing this to your friends, or also commenting on this to make sure it gets to more persons. My name is Manuel from Kata Studios. Do have a wonderful day.